and welcome to the Hope Sports Podcast, where each week amazing athletes share their personal stories of overcoming obstacles and conquering fears to encourage you in your unique journey towards purpose. I'm your host, Olympic gold medalist Laura Wilkinson. This week, we have such an influential and inspiring guest. Elana Meyers Taylor is a 3-time Olympian and an incredibly decorated bobsledder. But if you've ever felt like your dreams were dashed with one blundered opportunity, then Elana is your girl. Hear about how she navigated a failure so big that it seemed her Olympic aspirations would never come to be. Elana also uses her success to advocate for others. She serves as the president of the Women's Sports Foundation and will surely stir you to find ways to give back to those around you. All right, let's dive on in. Elana, welcome to the Hope Sports Podcast. I am absolutely stoked that you're here with us today.
It's great to be here.
Now, okay, you did not start off in bobsled, for which you are so well known for now. Can you kind of give us your background, how you got started in the sports, and how that eventually led to bobsled?
Yeah. So just as a preface, most people get into bobsled through a variety of ways, and nobody grows up bobsledding, with the exception of like if you live in Lake Placid, New York, or Park City, Utah, you might grow up doing it. But for the most part, nobody grows up bobsledding. So I grew up playing a lot of different sports: softball, basketball, track, soccer, you name it, I played it. But I really love softball. And I went to college, played softball, played professionally with the intention of going to the Olympics. And I did everything I could, but had an Olympic tryout and had the absolute worst tryout in the history of tryouts.
Oh, no.
It was really bad. Like, I was swinging at balls over my head. It was horrendous. And then softball was taken out of the game, so I thought my Olympic dream was over. But I still had it, so I was like, well, what other sports can I try? And it was at that point that my parents actually saw bobsled on TV and were like, well, why don't you try this one? They're looking for women. And I was like, okay, sure, why not? And I just Googled it and emailed the coach and got invited to a tryout.
Oh my gosh, I love it. You just Googled it and we're like, all right, let's give it a whirl.
Yeah, I have no idea what I would have done if I was pre-Google. I don't know if you find it.
Google saves the day. I love it. Oh, that's insane. And so, I mean, it was like, less than 3 years from when you started to when you were standing on the podium at the Olympics, right?
Yeah, it was crazy. That was a little bit of a whirlwind. Never would have imagined that. I knew I had a shot to make an Olympic team, but that was all I thought. I didn't have intentions of medaling.
Oh, man, that's so crazy. So what was making that first Olympics in 2010 like? I mean, was it just a dream, but just in a different sport? Or, I mean, was it just surreal? Describe that to us.
It was absolutely a dream. I mean, the first thing is for bobsled, for women's bobsled, we have 2-man is our traditional Olympic event. And there's 2 of us in the sled. So I was in the back. And I was a brakeman, and now I'm a pilot. But the brakeman position is largely dependent on a selection committee. So it's a group of people who selects you to be on the team. Whereas a pilot, the role I'm in now, you actually race races and earn points, and you make the team based off of your performance. So the brakeman, it's a much more nerve-wracking position. So all the way up until like 2 weeks before the Olympics, when the team is actually announced, you're battling it out and you're sweating and you're nervous as a brakeman because you have no idea what this committee is going to select. And fortunately, I was selected. So that moment was just the most incredible because, it was truly, I wasn't sure what was going to happen. And at that moment when they named me, it was like, oh my gosh, this is what I've been working for my entire life. And actually at that moment, I actually could relax a little bit because I was like, I can go in and enjoy these Olympics. I've made the team. And that seemed a lot harder than actually competing at the Olympics.
Yeah, I feel like that too. Our Olympic trials in diving is sometimes more intense than being at the Olympics because if you don't make the Olympic team, you can't try and achieve your dreams. It's that whole making the team part that's so critical.
Yeah. U.S. is tough for that too. So.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Now, at the 2013 World Championships, you won a silver medal. And as exciting as that is, something else happened on that award stand that I'm willing to bet was maybe even a little more exciting than the medal. Can you tell us about that?
Yes, it was one of the most exciting days of my life. So funny enough, I had been dating my now husband for 2 years at the time, and he's a bobsledder too. And we had the conversation. I thought he was going to propose to me at Christmas. But, so I was a little disappointed. And we had the conversation. I was like, absolutely do not propose to me at World Championships. I want World Championships to be about worlds. I want our proposal to be about that. because we had talked about getting married. But lo and behold, doesn't listen to me and proposed to me while I was on the medal stand. But it was actually like one of the coolest moments of my life, and I'm so glad he did it. And now we have footage, and now we have like all these photos from around the world of people who are covering the event, because he just got down on one knee, got some roses for me, which ended up, because it was so cold in St. Moritz, Switzerland, the roses actually froze, which is kind of funny.
Oh my goodness.
My hands were so swollen from racing, the ring didn't even fit, but still, it's a proposal, it's engagement, and it was like so much better than any world championship medal could ever be.
Oh, that's so epic. I love it that all the photographers were there. Everybody covered it. That's so cool. It's probably a good thing you didn't listen to that one time, right?
Yeah, that one time.
You let him sneak by. Well, so how is going into the Sochi Games in 2014 different from your first Olympic experience?
It was very different because my first Olympic experience, I went in just happy to be there. You just, everything's the most wonderful thing possible. But in Sochi, I actually went in with the intention of winning a gold medal. And that was what everything was focused on. And I felt like we had a great team in place. And I felt like my driving and my understanding of that particular track in Sochi was in a place where we could actually go for the gold medal. So that was all the focus. And at some part, I think we actually lost a little bit of the fun during that experience. It came about the gold medal. And I think that's actually why we didn't end up with the gold medal, because that's all the focus was on.
Oh, wow. Wow. So so you guys still got a silver, but was that disappointing then because you were so focused on the gold?
It was a little disappointing because we were leading the race for 3 heats, and it was.
You do 4, right?
Yep. We do 4 heats, and then it's total combined time, and so I was in a really good position after the first 3 heats. I was still leading the race by over 1/10 of a second at least, which is pretty large margin bobsled to start off with. And then I made a mental mistake and ended up making a pretty costly mistake at a curve at the top of the track. And that cost us a good amount of time, which ended up costing us a gold medal essentially. And I think because I had put the pressure on myself and because I had actually questioned myself whether or not I could do it, that's what eventually cost us. And because I was so focused on that gold medal and because we were so close, it really changed how I looked at that race.
Oh, wow. So how did you feel after that? Like walking out the games kind of like after that?
Oh, I was pretty devastated. And, I feel like you still win a silver medal. It's still a huge accomplishment, but at the same time, and knowing that I could have done better, that's the hardest thing to deal with, because 4 years later, it would be the same result, but a totally different experience. So after that Olympics, I knew I could do better. I could be a better driver. I could be a better athlete at that point. And that's why I felt like I had let myself down and my team down. So I knew I had to make changes going into the next squad.
That's cool. And you and Nick tied the knot shortly after Sochi, right?
Yes.
So was the wedding planning distracting at all going into that games, or was it you were able to separate and compartmentalize?
It's actually, I wouldn't necessarily recommend it, but it actually gives you something else to focus on. I feel like as athletes, sometimes we get so caught up in what we're doing and we live in these little bubbles of, we got to do every single thing. And in my sport, we're trying to fight for every 100th. So what that comes down to is what you eat, how much you're sleeping, what exact time you're doing your workouts. And you spend so much time in that focus. It's sometimes nice to have things outside to focus on. And the wedding planning was kind of in that regard. Granted, I didn't really know what I was doing. My mom helped me plan a lot of it. She called me up one day. She's like, so what color do you want for your wedding? I said, pink. And she's like, okay, what shade of pink? I was like, there's different shades of pink? What are you talking about? I don't know, pink, different shades. Just do them all. So it is a good distraction in some regards.
That's awesome. I love your laid back attitude. That's great. Okay, so 2015 was another huge year for you where you made history. You became the first woman to earn a spot on the U.S. national team competing with the men as a four-man bobsled pilot. You went on to become the first woman to win a medal in international competition in a men's event. And if that's not enough, you also won the 2015 World Championships in the women's two-man event, the first woman in history to do so. I mean, how are you doing these things and what separates you from everyone else?
I don't know. Grace of God. That's all I can say. Fortunately, I've got a lot of really good people around me. My husband being one of them, and that was the biggest thing is when I wanted to take on four-man, and traditionally women's bobsled has just been two-person. We've actually been banned from driving four-man sleds for most of history, all the way from 1939 to 2014. Women were actually banned from driving four-man sleds, because I don't know, it'll hurt our ovaries or something like that. So we finally got the right to drive sleds, and I really wanted to take it on, but it was something when I initially went to take it on, I couldn't get anyone to get behind me in the sled. I couldn't get any brakemen. And I was having a lot of hard time really making this happen. And my husband, being a bobsledder, volunteered to be the first one in my sled. And then fortunately, I was able to get other guys to join him, not join me, join him after. So like I said, I've been fortunate to have his support and the support of other people around me to really do some incredible things and have some incredible experiences. And in that season in particular, it was not only my husband, but my coaching staff as well to try and work together to develop a plan to allow me to do both two-man and four-man races and still compete at a high level. So it took a team, literally, in order to be able to accomplish those things.
Oh, that's so cool. And that kind of leads in really well because I was going to ask you, what's it like having a husband that's also an elite level bobsledder?
Most of the time it's pretty awesome. He understands me better than I understand myself, and he knows what I need before I know I need it. And it's just great having him there with me and having him to help out with whatever I need. At the Olympics this year, I there's no chance I would have won a silver medal without him. So he's an instrumental part of my team. But at the same time, I want him to win more than I want myself to win. So it is I can imagine maybe because you have children. So maybe it's like that way for having kids. You get so nervous when they're competing. Like you just, I can't, it's hard for me to actually watch and like not want to do something, but there's nothing you can do. You just sit at the sidelines and just hope and pray because you can't do anything. And that is the most nerve-wracking thing I think ever.
Well, I read somewhere that you guys try to minimize your shop talk at home, though. Like at home, you say it's the B word or something. Isn't there some like rule about it? What's the rule?
We have to ask permission to talk about the B word. Just because we really want to make sure, this day and age, there's enough distractions out there, and we want to make sure that our marriage stays secure and we're really engaged with each other. So we want to make sure we're not sitting at home talking about bobsled all day. Because at one point, we're not going to be bobsledders anymore. We're not going to be able to do this anymore. And it's important that we don't spend however many years we've got only focused on bobsled. Because then what would we talk about in our marriage later? Like, we're just going to sit around and tell old bobsled stories? No. So it's important to develop ourselves outside of sport.
Oh, that's great. I love it. And you did mention that your husband got in with you to encourage others to get in the sled with you, but you also got to compete with him, didn't you?
Yes. Yep.
Okay. So were you as nervous for him when he was in your sled, or were you not as nervous then because you were driving?
No, I was less nervous because I was driving. I had control, so I could actually do something about it. So actually, that was the most fun. It's funny with other drivers. I'm like a nervous wreck.
I love it. So you guys work well together. It's perfect. I'll continue my conversation with Elana in just a minute. But first, I want to tell you more about what we do here at Hope Sports. At Hope Sports, we know that you want to be the best athlete that you can be. And in order to do that, you train hard and dedicate yourself to performing at your peak. But sometimes it can feel monotonous. Every day has a similar routine, and when you win, well, no victory feels as good as a loss feels bad. It doesn't have to be this way. We believe athletes can compete at their full potential and reach their dreams while feeling lasting satisfaction from their accomplishments. We understand what it's like when you've dedicated your life to something, but you feel like you're never living up to people's expectations and you don't feel satisfied with your achievements. Hundreds of athletes have told us that they've discovered how to compete at their best while finding lasting fulfillment in their achievements during our interactive international service trips. Our next trip is coming up June 7th through 10th in Rosarito, Mexico, and we want you to be there. It's so easy to get involved. Just go to hopesports.org, sign up for the June 7th through 10th home build, and build hope for a family and win like never before. So sign up today. It could be the key you need to find success in your career. And now back to the last half of my conversation with Elana. Now, you mentioned getting really nervous when he goes, and he was an alternate on the 2018 men's Olympic bobsled team, and you made your third Olympic team. I'm guessing there was a huge mix of emotions there. Like, can you kind of walk us through that?
Yeah, so actually, most people I feel like come off the Olympics and are pretty disappointed to be named in an alternate spot. But, my husband is one of the most positive people you would ever meet. And as soon as he was named to alternate spot, yes, he was disappointed that he wouldn't be racing, but at the same time, our alternates travel with us. They stay right, if they're not in the village, they stay right outside the village. They're at our training sessions every day. They have full access to the village. So they're there with us and they're an integral part of the team. So for him, as soon as, they named the alternate selection, he spent maybe a minute being bummed. And then he just took it at, what do I need to do to help this team win a medal? And not only did he do that for the men's team, but he also did that for me as well, is what is my role now and how am I going to support my wife in trying to win this medal? So, and before that Olympics, I actually ended up tearing my Achilles. So he was an instrumental part of me being able to even compete, and him being an alternate, being able to be there every single day to help me through that was huge.
When did you tear it?
We had a training camp a week before the games, a week before ceremonies. And I was doing an uphill sprint and came down wrong on it and immediately felt like I'd been shot in the leg. It was not great.
Okay. Yeah. So how did you go on to be okay enough to do it at the Olympics? I mean, that's a tear. That's pretty significant. I mean, that's tough.
Yeah. So it was a partial tear. But luckily, it wasn't a full rupture. And then at that point, we had MRI and everything, and we realized, this is pretty bad. But if I could manage the pain, there's a chance I might do some worse damage, and I definitely did. But the main thing was dealing with the pain and figuring out creative ways to train as much as possible, but also train as little as possible to get to the actual races. And so it was even to the point where I had medical treatments every single day, multiple times a day. I couldn't walk in opening ceremonies. We literally had to limit my walking as much as possible. I actually rolled up to the games in a wheelchair, came off the plane and was going through Pyeongchang in a wheelchair for a little bit.
Wow.
Which was pretty interesting. And then my husband recrafted my shoes to make them more comfortable, to allow me to get in a sled. And we just really got creative with our training.
Wow. That's impressive. I mean, I know most athletes are at some level of injury going in, but to have a significant tear like that, that's something else. And I mean, you were battling Team Germany in Pyeongchang, right? Over 4 heats of competition back and forth. And you just missed out on the gold medal by 0.07 of a second. But you said this was totally different from Sochi. So what was that experience like?
Yeah, going in with the Achilles, I knew we were at a significant disadvantage. I knew that would hurt us pretty significantly. And also, we were having some equipment issues as well. So I knew the cards were against us. So I just went in and tried to drive the 4 best heats of my life. And I really felt like I put together a race that I could be proud of. And that's why, regardless of whether or not we had won a medal, I was going to be happy with that race, because we really went out there and put on a show, me and my brakeman, Lauren Gibbs. And I think we put on a great performance. And at the end of the day, I think that's where my career has kind of shifted. It started off as all about me and what's going on and inside my head and my hands and really wanting to win all this hardware. But it became more about the performance and going out there and putting on a show. I mean, that's what people want to see. We're out there to perform in front of, at the Olympics, millions of people. They want to see a show. They want to see a close race, 0.07 of a second. They don't want to see somebody winning by half a second. So if I can give people a good, entertaining show, that's what I'm out there to do.
Well, I love how you connected that to like you understand the change and just having that different attitude. Like, I'm just going to put on my best. I'm going to be happy with what I can do and just getting the same result, like you said, but you're walking away with a totally different feeling and emotion and memories from it. I mean, that's pretty awesome. I think that's just a great takeaway for all of us listening to your story here. But I do have to back up because right before Pyeongchang, didn't you try a different sport randomly?
Yes. I tried
What?
rugby.
What? Like, how did that happen? And why did that happen?
Yeah. So during the summers in bobsled, you can train anywhere in the world because there's no ice. So we're just doing running and lifting. So right before Sochi, I was in Chula Vista, California at the Olympic Training Center out there where the U.S. rugby team trains. And the rugby coach saw me. And of course, I'm pretty much rugby player size. And my dad was a running back in the NFL. So he saw me. It's like, hey, why don't you come over here and throw this rugby ball around and come out and practice with us? And I was like, you know what? I'm kind of busy right now. I'm not going to take those kind of risks. But afterwards, I came home from Sochi. I was pretty disappointed. And I just wanted to be away from bobsled for a little bit. And rugby gave me a perfect outlet. So I was fortunate enough. Rugby looks for a lot of crossover athletes. So I was fortunate enough to go right with the U.S. team and start training with them and go to 2 tournaments with them, which was a really cool experience and really helped me get over, I guess, your quote-unquote post-Olympic depression that you kind of suffer, especially when you're really disappointed with a performance like that. I was inundated with a group of girls who were so energetic about the sport rugby, which at that time was just going Olympic, and they're just trying to navigate this Olympic pathway and everything. And the girls were so welcoming and everything. It was a nice breath of fresh air right after those games.
That's cool. Well, be careful because we just talked to Alev Kelter a few weeks ago, and that's how she got sucked right in. So we might be needing to watch for you in the next summer games too, is what I think I'm hearing.
I'm good now. Me and Alev actually came in at the same time. So she's a joy. She's an awesome person. So it was good.
Yeah, she is. She is fantastic. Now, I have to ask this because I don't know much about the bobsled process and how you get your teammates, because I know at each Olympic Games you've had a different teammate. And you said the pilot is based off of like points and results and how you're doing, but the brakeman is always selected.
Yes.
Is that hard for? Are you having to constantly work with different people throughout the season? Then, like, how does that dynamic work?
Yes.
So complicated.
Yeah, they do constantly rotate throughout the season. They used to be in bobsled that the pilots used to choose their brakemen, but in order to make sure they had the most competitive sleds possible, they changed it to a selection committee of it's 6 people, coaches, and some of the upper level executives who sit down and decide the brakeman for each sled. And they look at numbers, they look at physical testing numbers, they look at results of races over the season and how they've done, and really try and dig into the numbers and choose the best brakeman for each sled. So I have a little bit of input, but usually it doesn't really, it goes with whatever they see best. And as a pilot, you kind of just have to trust that they know what's best for your sled. Because as a pilot, I feel like you can have blind spots. You could feel more comfortable with one person or another. But if they see something that's going to make you faster down the hill, then you have to trust them. So it's nerve-wracking for the brakeman to not know. And in the past 3 Olympics, I think the difference between making and not making the team for brakemen over all the data we had was like 200th of a second. So it's very narrow margins, and it's a crushing decision, but fortunately I don't have to make it.
Oh, that's so tough. Well, okay, so your life is so intertwined in your sport. I mean, when you train, you earn a living, you're sitting on the boards of directors, you're getting proposed to at an event, you're training with and competing with your husband, like all of these things with bobsled. Like, how do you separate Elana and your worth as a person from your performance and your results as an athlete?
Yeah, I think part of it is my faith. Part of it is staying up on my faith and realizing that there's more to bobsled than, God gave me a gift to be a bobsledder, but that's not the only thing I'm going to do. And that's not the only thing I've done. So there's much more I have to accomplish. And in that regard, my father being a professional athlete always made sure that we had other interests, because you never know when it's going to end. I hope that I get the chance to choose when I retire, but at the end of the day, you don't know. So we've seen with plenty of athletes, they have to retire before they would like to. So I have to be prepared. So I've always managed to work or volunteer or do whatever I can outside my sport to make sure I don't get too inundated in the day and bobsled in it. And that's my only life, because at some point it's going to end. It's going to end, and I need to be prepared for that.
Ah, so wise. I love it. Now, last year, George Washington University honored you with an honorary doctorate degree, and now you're the current president of the Women's Sports Foundation. I mean, does this kind of all just seem surreal, or were these things you were hoping for and gunning for one day, like long, long ago? Or how has life taken this turn for you?
It is very surreal. I always wanted a doctorate, but I thought I'd actually have to go to school and earn it. So
most people do.
Yeah, so I still might do that. That still might be in the cards. But as far as the Women's Sports Foundation and being the president of that, it's every day. It's such an honor to be at the helm of that organization. It's for me, it's an organization that's played such a powerful role in my life. As far as even just giving me some of the basics I needed to be able to become an elite level bobsledder, whether it's in the form of grants or whether it was in the form of support, and being able to go to events and meet the most incredible female athletes in the world and being able to sit down and pick their brains and be, how are you successful? How are you able to do this? It's just been such an incredible organization towards me. So to be able to be in this position, it's such an honor and a privilege. And I do have to pinch myself because, to be able to impact girls and women in sports, it's more than I could ever ask for.
It's so cool. What are some of the coolest things you've done since being president?
The coolest things by far are the athlete ambassador events. The events we put on, we have athlete ambassador events around the country. And if anybody is interested, any of your listeners are interested, we're always looking for athlete ambassadors. And basically we would run events at people's hometown and we'd have athletes at those events, Women's Sports Foundation athletes. And so those events have been the most incredible events I get to do because it's girls from a variety of background, whether different socioeconomic status, different racial status, it doesn't matter, all different backgrounds. And we're working with them in one common task, and that's learning a sport. And so to be able to see the smiles on their faces, to be able to see 100 kids run up to Billie Jean King, Billie Jean King is 75 years old and you got 6-year-olds running up to her asking for the autograph and being a part of that. It's the coolest thing I could ever imagine. And just being surrounded by kids who are so enthusiastic just to be able to get out and play sport. Like for them, it's not about winning Olympic medals at that point. It's just getting out there and playing. It's really, really incredible experience.
I love it. That's so awesome. Now, you fully intend to return to the Winter Olympic Games in Beijing in 2022, right?
Yep.
Yeah?
Yep.
Once again going for gold?
Yep. Yeah.
How's the training? I hear that. How's the training going right now?
Yeah. So actually, on that regard, I'm learning that I am getting older. I have to train differently. This year in itself, coming off the Achilles injury, I've really struggled to be healthy, whether it's, illnesses or injuries itself. I tend to think I'm still 22, but I'm realizing this year that I'm not. So we have to learn how to train differently and adapt things. And that's really been the story of this season is struggling through that and finding out what our new limits are and defining what that is. So I feel like we're starting to get a handle on it. And going in the next 3 years, we're really going to have a plan so I can get to Beijing 2022 as healthy as possible and still competitively.
I love it. So are you going to take up another sport for cross training in between?
Absolutely not.
You are totally welcome in the pool with me. I could use a synchro partner. Just going to throw that out there.
You're
always welcome.
I can belly flop. So
I don't want to do that from 10 meters. That's not going to feel good.
I'll do different types of training than I've done. A little bit more yoga, a little bit more, a lot less pounding and a lot less time in the weight room. So it'll be a little bit different. But I actually was thinking about this about a week ago, and I sat down with my husband and I was like, you know what? I think I'm done with new sports. Like I'm at the point in time where I'm just, if I haven't played it before, we're not picking it up. Because in bobsled, a lot of people get crazy ideas where they're going to try all these other sports because they tried bobsled and it worked. So why not try something else? But I was like, no, I'm done. I wouldn't mind throwing a softball around again. But as far as new sports, nah, they're good.
Well, you were still always welcome at the pool with me. So I'm just keeping that offer on the table. So Elana, where can we follow you online to keep just being inspired and encouraged by you and to cheer you on toward Beijing?
So my Instagram handle is Elana Meyers Taylor. My Twitter handle is EAMSlider24, and I'm on Facebook. But as always, you can always go to womensportsfoundation.org, find more about me and the organization and all the work we're doing.
Awesome. Elana, thank you so much for coming on our podcast and sharing your incredible story and just inspiring all of us.
Oh, thank you. It's a pleasure talking to you.
Isn't she incredible? I feel like so many can relate to her story. Sometimes there are experiences like her tryouts that just don't go as we hope or plan, and it feels like it derails our entire lives. But she was able to step into something new without having to abandon her dreams entirely. They just took shape in a different way. I hope that you're encouraged today that no matter if you're an athlete trying to make it to the top or an entrepreneur or a person with a big vision for your future, your dreams are still attainable, even if it's not the way that you originally envisioned it. And if you want support in ways that you can grow as a competitor and overcome obstacles just like Elana did, head on over to lauralwilkinson.com/performance to grab my free guide, 5 things that you can do today to become a more confident competitor. Again, that's lauralwilkinson.com/performance. Be sure to tune in next week as we have another incredible woman, Alev Kelter, who plays for USA Women's Rugby. On behalf of Hope Sports, I'm Laura Wilkinson. Thanks again for tuning in and have a great week. This podcast is produced by Evo Terra and Simpler Media. For more information on Hope Sports and to access the complete archives, please visit hopesports.org.